Your go-to sports talk from your own backyard. This is SS Tampa Bay.
All right, everyone, welcome back. It's episode 2. Zach Seifter here along with my man Harrison Smatchbits, and we are back, SS Tampa Bay. Welcome, everyone. And today we got a really special edition of the SS Tampa Bay podcast for you. Harrison and I are going to be giving you our very own mock drafts as we are just 5 days out from the NFL draft. Harrison, it's great to be with you once again. How you doing, my man?
Doing pretty good, Zach. Making the most of being at home like I'm assuming everyone is. And, spent a little bit this week preparing my mock draft. Probably took a different approach than you did. I did a little more focus on what the Bucs were going to do than others. I still made sure there was some logic in some of my picks, so we'll see where we go from there.
Absolutely. Like I said, just 5 days out from the NFL draft in the midst of this coronavirus, my man. We need it, man. We need some kind of football. I'm losing my mind in quarantine as, a lot of people are. And it's exciting that, it might not be a game, but it's just something in the sports world, dude. So I am stoked for the NFL draft, as I'm sure you are. And, we'll talk about the Bucs. We'll talk about the rest of the teams. For our mock drafts, what we're only going to do is for the first round, we're going to only do the first 14 picks as it leads up to the Bucs pick. So we're going to go 1 through 13. Then obviously the Bucs pick at 14. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit more about what the Bucs do rounds 2 through 7. But for the first round, just picks 1 through 14 until the Bucs get their pick.
Agreed. You know what? This is going to be a very interesting draft to see, Zach. Honestly, one thing that kind of gets me is it's going to be remote. I'm curious how things work differently. I wonder if on TV they're going to show a bunch of heads.
They might. I heard Roger Goodell. Well, this is confirmed already. Goodell is making all the announcements for the picks from his basement. And I heard a little rumor that his family is going to be there with him in the basement, and they are going to boo him to keep the tradition alive.
Nice. Can you imagine just having, respect. Can you imagine telling your family, hey, I'm so used to being booed. Can you, boo me for the aesthetic? And the kids are like, you're annoying enough so we can do it.
Exactly. I mean, you got to keep the tradition alive. Everyone's going to be booing him from home. You might as well have his family there. Or they could play some sort of audio as he's walking up to the podium in his basement of just a bunch of boos. They'll play remotely. They'll do something fun like that. But anyway, Harrison, enough of this. Let's dive right in. Let's do it. I'm going to let you take the floor with your number 1 overall pick.
All right, Zach. And you know what? I think both of our first overall picks are going to be identical. We have the Cincinnati Bengals taking Joe Burrow out of LSU right away.
The obvious choice. I have the same thing. Joe Burrow out of LSU. The man led arguably the greatest offense in college football history last year en route to an LSU national championship. It's impossible not to have him number 1 overall here. Now, the thing that's interesting for me with the Bengals is they still have yet to get rid of Andy Dalton. That's $18 to $20 million of salary cap for a guy who, if you keep him, is going to be sitting the bench for your number 1 overall pick.
I think the reason they haven't gotten rid of Dalton yet is because you never know, they might trade down. They want that safety net because we've all heard the rumors the Dolphins might trade up to number 1, some other rumors too, but you never know. If you trade down, someone else takes Joe Burrow, you want that safety net of, hey, at least we have a veteran quarterback in Andy Dalton. I'm not saying he's the best choice to have as quarterback, but if you give him the weapons, he can be productive.
He's a serviceable veteran, but I just don't see any scenario where, Cincinnati trades out of that number 1 spot. I don't care if Miami comes up to you with 3 or 4 first-round picks. It's Joe Burrow. The man lit the world on fire last year. And it's like, how do you validate not only to, your fan base, but to yourselves or even the teammates, the rest of the team. We passed on a guy who had arguably the greatest season of any college quarterback ever to trade down, just to gather more picks. And obviously, it'd be a sweet pot if Miami comes up and says offers you 3 or 4 first rounders, maybe a couple second rounders, like a Ricky Williams type of deal when what's his face, the old Chicago Bears coach, he's now on ESPN, Mike Ditka. When Mike Ditka gave away the Saints' entire draft for Ricky Williams. It's hard to sit there and take it, turn down a deal like that, but I don't see why they would do it. I just don't.
I don't know if he'd ever do that again, knowing how that trade turned out. Ditka basically said his career was long over at that point after some interviews. You know what? I don't think they actually make the trade. but they want to make it look like they might. You never know. You could always get a team to say, it's almost here, it's coming. The Dolphins might still not be fully sold on Tua, even though I think they are. I think it's tanking for Tua all the way until 5 days from now.
Yeah, exactly.
But you never know. You never know.
It doesn't make sense to me. I don't see why they would trade out of the number one spot. It's Burrow to the Bengals.
I'm going with Burrow to the Bengals anyway. I'm just trying to justify why Dalton is still on the team. You never know. Maybe they want a backup just to help with Burrow too. That's another option for some reason we haven't talked about yet. But I'm trying to make it interesting here.
I'll tell you what, though. Burrow played for the LSU Tigers. He's about to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. He needs to change his last name to Exotic, man. Joe Exotic, the Tiger King,
He's the Tiger King for life now, Zach. He's
the Tiger King for life. All right, let's move on. Number 2, Washington Redskins. What do you got?
I got Chase Young. Easy pick.
This is obvious as number 1 overall pick. Chase Young. He's probably the best player in this draft, regardless of position. I mean,
it's unbelievable for Ohio State last year. I mean, that defense was one of the best in college football probably in the last 10 years. Not to diss the offense at all. I mean, J.K. Dobbins and Justin Fields went out there and were amazing, but dude was just Saxonville in one body. That's the best way to describe it.
If scouts are to be believed, he's more of a sure thing than the Bosa brothers. And the Bosa brothers, I mean, even Nick Bosa last year with the 49ers as a rookie, 9.5 sacks. He was part of the best defensive line in football, and he was a dominant force. Joey Bosa, as we all know with the Chargers, has been one of the better pass rushers in the NFL for the last few years. I mean, and Chase Young is more of a sure thing than them. Chase Young, 16.5 sacks last year, despite missing time for Ohio State. I mean, it speaks for itself. He is a dominant edge rusher who will make the Washington Redskins happy for at least a decade, if not longer.
And one thing also about Chase Young you have to really appreciate is that vision. That dude's eyesight is better than 20/20. You cannot perform like that. I mean, you need the agility and the strength too, but you need to be able to see those open holes in the offensive line if you're able to pull off 16.5 sacks in 12 games. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And, they're going to stick him. Ron Rivera is about to be a very happy man Thursday night when he sees what he's got with the number 2 pick. All right. Detroit Lions, number 3. Hit me with it.
This one's kind of more of a conservative decision. Most people are probably going to go with this option, going with Jeff Okudah.
Jeff Okudah, Ohio State, back-to-back Ohio State defenders. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's talk that the Lions might trade down. Maybe Miami tries to jump up and get to at the number 3 spot. But in this scenario, we're only going to we're doing 1 through 14, assuming that there's no trades. I have to agree, Jeff Okudah. With the Lions trading Darius Slay, their best corner, to the Philadelphia Eagles weeks ago, it makes sense. They need a corner. They have a hole in that secondary. Jeff Okudah is the best defensive back in this draft. Without a doubt. Detroit Lions, Jeff Okudah, number 3.
And you know what? Even though we're talking about no trades in this draft, Zach, I'm going to say the Dolphins trading up can still happen. I think it's a very realistic scenario. You can say almost
incredibly realistic. Washington, especially if Washington doesn't trade out of their number 2 spot for Young, it makes sense. Detroit is willing to trade down. Washington's probably not taking a quarterback because they have Haskins. It makes sense.
Listen, the Lions low-key want the draft picks the Dolphins have. The Dolphins are almost desperate for Tua. The want for Tua is so high, you can see them going up to number 3 to grab him. And the Lions still have the option, even at number 5, to pick up maybe Isaiah Simmons or Okudah still.
Well, think about this. I mean, are the Giants about to go get Jeff Okudah? They might. There are so many holes on that New York team. It makes sense that the Giants might go, and we'll get to this in a second, but, when we go over the Giants pick. But, the Giants have holes. They have holes on the defense side of the ball. They still have holes on the offensive line. They could use a receiver. The Giants have so many needs. It's not a sure thing that they would go Okudah. In fact, it's almost probably, common thought to be that they're going to go elsewhere besides cornerback. If you're the Lions and you want Okudah, but you can trade down 2 spots, maybe pick up an extra pick from the Dolphins, which trading from, this isn't trading from 21 to 19. This is trading from 5 to 3. You might be able to get a first rounder out of Miami. just because you hold a top 3 pick and the value there is so much higher than, say, if you trade 2 spots later in the first round, you might be able to pick up a first rounder or a second rounder or something along those lines, get a quality pick, and still trade back 2 spots and get the guy you wanted all along.
I can see Miami giving up a first-round pick too. They have 3 of them. Honestly,
Exactly.
there's a chance they might give up more than one if they're that desperate. We've seen it. We've seen some potential trades where they give up 2 of their first-round picks to get to number 3. I think that's not a good idea. I can see maybe a first-round pick and a second-round pick in the end of it, but
I mean,
it's
though,
possible.
a few years back, all those years back when the Redskins 2012 traded up with the Rams to get from 6 to 2, they gave up 3 first-round picks just about 4 spots. This is only 2 spots. I think it could cost them a first-rounder because they are trading into the top 3, but it might be a price Miami is willing to pay to guarantee they get their franchise quarterback.
Now, I just
All
kind of want to say this is a hypothetical just for the sake of conversation. I don't think this is happening at all. I think the Redskins would be dumb to do anything else besides draft Chase Young. But what if they took Tua? Because I've seen a few projections that actually had that. That would throw the entire draft off.
It would be crazy to see them draft Tua. I just don't see a scenario where it necessarily happens just because they do have a first-round pick who did show flashes last year in Dwayne Haskins. They have Dwayne Haskins, a first-round pick last year. I mean, and are you really – I mean, I get it's new coaching staff and they might want to have their guy, but, I mean, there's too much talent there. And after 1 year, are you really going to throw out Dwayne Haskins, a guy who threw 50 touchdown passes for Ohio State just 2 years ago? And, last year he sat behind Keenum, but the Redskins were a mess last year. Jay Gruden got fired midseason. Before that, the team was garbage as it was. Case Keenum wasn't doing anything. They don't have any receivers. Jordan Reed was out with concussions again. They have nowhere to – and their starting running back is a 34-year-old in Adrian Peterson. Are you really going to blame Haskins for how inept that offense was?
I can't. It's just a lot of times they want scapegoats. And if you have an option to get an even bigger name and a potentially bigger performer, and again, I don't think they do this. But in a sense, just to play devil's advocate here, listen, the Cardinals went and got Josh Rosen and then immediately went and got Kyler Murray. It happens sometimes that they go and immediately say, well, we give up on this guy because we think this other person's going to be a lot better. And maybe if it worked out a bit for the Cardinals, the Redskins might say, what if we do that?
Well, we'll see what happens Thursday. Obviously, we both think this isn't going to happen. It wouldn't make a ton of sense.
No, it wouldn't make any sense at all. I don't see any trades happening unless it's honestly the Dolphins trying to move up.
All right. New York Giants, number 4. Let's go. Let's do it.
Well, knowing that everything went as we said for the actual predictions, and just to recap for everyone, Zach, Joe Burrow to the Bengals, Chase Young to the Redskins, and Jeff Okudah to the Lions. I'm going with Isaiah Simmons to the Giants because that defense needs to be fixed now. Honestly, I see that more of a priority than anything on offense.
You see, this is going to be the first pick where we disagree. New York Giants, number 4 overall pick, offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. Their priority, in my opinion, is to keep Daniel Jones standing up, all right? That offensive line has been abysmal for years. It's been lousy. Yeah, Saquon Barkley still runs. He's still out of his mind in terms of running back, but that's just pure talent more than blocking and opening up large holes for him. The fact of the matter is they need to keep their quarterback protected, and they need, like I said earlier, there's holes all over that roster. On the offensive side and the defensive side, they could use a receiver. They need help along the offensive line. Tristan Wirfs could be their franchise left tackle going forward. I know they have Nate Solder. They got him for the Patriots a couple years ago, and he's been competent. Maybe you start off Wirfs on the right side, and then you transition him over to the left. I don't know. But in my opinion, the Giants need to address the offensive line. Tristan Wirfs, number 4 overall pick.
Now, I'm going to have to disagree, Zach, and say that, honestly, you mentioned that Saquon is already balling out with the bad offensive line. And I think that's a justification to go after the defensive line because, and I'm secondary because it's a linebacker, but listen, personally, I'm not that big on Daniel Jones to begin with, so I would make the argument that he would struggle even with the offensive line. He would do better, but I don't think he would really be Eli Manning's successor. I mean, that was a controversial pick to begin with. And I think boosting that defense will allow to immediately put a stronger team on the field and maybe win another game immediately.
Let me let you in on a little statistic, Harrison. 2019, the Giants allowed 43 sacks last year. 43. Now, obviously, there's teams that allowed more. I believe the Bucs gave up 47 or 48 with Jameis' starting quarterback last year. You have a rookie quarterback who showed some promise last year, but you're not keeping him upright and has a fumbling problem. Daniel Jones has an issue fumbling the football. You got to keep him standing upright, and you can't allow him to get constantly knocked around and put on the ground, or he's going to cough up the football. The Giants have had a lousy offensive line for the last several years. They haven't made the playoffs since 2016, I believe. Since that 2017 season, the year after, their offensive line has been crap. Saquon Barkley is a generational running back. That's why he's as good as he is, despite running behind a bad offensive line.
Now, Zach.
However, you have a second-year quarterback with promise. He has a fumbling problem that can be coached, but for the time being, keep him standing upright. The
Now, let
offensive
me hit you
line
with
needs to
some
be addressed as
statistics
well.
myself, because don't worry, I came prepared with mine too. Fun fact: the New York Giants, and my laptop decided to spaz out on me there, so I'll have it for you in a second.
Listen, we can go back and forth on this. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, first we'll take a look at points per game. The Giants are third to last in points per game, 28 points.
Giving up or scoring? Offensively or defensively?
Defensively.
Offensively?
They gave up the third most points on defense the entire year. That was one behind the Bucs, because we know the Bucs the first half of the season were just atrocious.
Plus 41 turnovers certainly doesn't help.
No, and if you look at interceptions, they only had 10 interceptions all year, which is tied for third worst in the NFL. Just to give perspective, the Bucs had 12 in their 15th. Some of the best defenses had up to 20-25 in the Steelers and the Patriots. I just think a great way for the Giants to improve sooner is for points prevention over outscoring the opponent. And we're going to look to the Bucs for that as an example too. I mean, yeah, they had their issues, but if you can't stop the team and get the ball back to the offense, what are you supposed to do?
I mean, I understand your point. Your point's well taken, but
your point's also well taken, Zach.
The issue becomes also, if you don't score, you can't win. All right? That's just the reality of it. And for perspective, the New York Football Giants weren't exactly, a hot offensive team either. In total offense last season, they were 23rd in the league. They only averaged just over 20 points a game, 21.3 points a game. That's not going to win you a lot of football games, all right? For perspective, the Bucs last year were, one of the top offenses in the league. They averaged over 28 points a game. The best offense league in points per game was the Baltimore Ravens at 33.2. It's a scoring league. Offensive numbers are up, and if you can't score, you can't win, all right? That's just the reality of it. And the Giants were not a productive team last year offensively either. Let's just be honest.
They weren't productive offensively, but I will say, and I apologize to interrupt you there.
They're sitting at the number 4 pick because they're a mess on both sides of the ball, all right?
They're a mess on both. Listen, we know they weren't tanking. They just sucked. We can agree on that. Some teams were tanking, like the Dolphins. Teams like the Jets and the Giants both just sucked, and that's why they have higher picks.
Exactly. The Giants are a mess on both sides of the ball. They could go – there's a lot of different ways they could go.
I think they benefit either way if they go either offensive tackle or linebacker. Just looking at the stats overall, they looked worse on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive one, and I think that's why they go to the linebacker, because they need to boost that secondary.
Well, Isaiah Simmons isn't even necessarily a safety. He's a hybrid. He's a linebacker safety hybrid. They could put him in either spot.
True. I will say, fair point there, but I'm drafting him from the perspective that he's a linebacker. And I think it would help a lot. Anyway, shall we move on to the next pick?
Number 5 pick, we don't even need to explain this. Tua Tagovailoa to the Dolphins.
anyone who says anything differently, honestly, you live under a rock.
This is as simple as bro to the Bengals and Chase Young to the Redskins. Next.
Yeah, let's not even talk about that one.
Los Angeles, we know it's Tua. Number 6, Chargers.
Chargers, I'm going to say they pick up a quarterback, and a lot of people would probably say it's Justin Herbert. I'm going with Jordan Love.
Jordan Love, wow.
Just
Explain
because
yourself.
it's a gutsy pick, but I've been watching some stuff on Justin Herbert, and I'm not as big on him as I used to be. Just because he has his moments where he's unbelievable, and then there's times where you think his football IQ is down the toilets. It doesn't seem like he has the vision at times to really step up. It's one comparison someone made to him was Mitch Trubisky, and that's not a good one.
That's not where you want to be, no.
It's not, and both had better seasons. I mean, if you look at Herbert in the Auburn game, he didn't look that good. His best game was against Colorado, and that wasn't exactly a great opponent.
Well, yeah. I mean, anyone that plays in the Pac-12, it's not exactly, a powerhouse conference.
No, and I'm going to go with Love. I think he just might be someone who transitions to the NFL better. And Herbert, if you do draft him, and he is a first-round pick, I just think if you have a top 10 pick and you want a quarterback, it shouldn't be Herbert. Maybe it's more like if the Patriots want to replace Brady later in the draft, that's who they go with.
All right. Well, with the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm going with the quarterback you just trashed, Justin Herbert. And I'll tell you why. Sure, you sit there and you might say Justin Herbert's a first-round pick, but he's not a top 10 pick. Well, I'll tell you something. People will reach for quarterbacks all day long. It is the most important position on the football field. Justin Herbert has had his flashes of brilliance, and the Chargers are willing to gamble that they can coach him up to consistently to play in that brilliant manner. The fact of the matter is, the talent's there. It's undeniable. He has so much arm talent. He might have one of the best arms in the draft.
I mean, the talent's there for other quarterbacks like Jameis Winston, Mitch Trubisky, and it all comes down to how they perform on the field. The talent could be there from the day they're born until the day they die. But if they don't actually step up and make those improvements, I don't know. I'm not sold.
Justin Herbert is a higher-rated quarterback by a lot of draft analysts, and I got to follow that Justin Herbert is the pick there, not Jordan Love. Jordan Love is a first-round pick, in my opinion, also. His ceiling, I've heard, Patrick Mahomes. His floor, Jameis Winston. So we'll see with Jordan Love. But Justin Herbert, I think, is too talented to pass on at number 6. The Chargers are not about to roll into the season with Tyrod Taylor as the best quarterback on their roster. The Chargers, Justin Herbert, 6th overall pick. Let's move on.
I agree. And let's be real. No team should go into the season with Tyrod Taylor as their quarterback. The Browns couldn't even make that decision. They went with Baker immediately.
I'll say this. Tyrod Taylor might start the season. He won't finish it.
I can see that. Maybe he plays the first 2 games, and if something goes wrong, they'll immediately put in whoever the Chargers draft, and then he's there forever.
Another Baker Mayfield situation from 2018 or 2018. Tyrod Taylor started like the first 2 games. Game 3, Thursday Night Football against the Jets. I don't remember if he got hurt or if he just had a really lousy first half. They inserted Baker Mayfield, and Mayfield never gave the job back.
Yes, and let's go. I say move on to the next pick.
Number 7, Carolina.
North Carolina, I'm going with Derek Brown from Auburn. It just seems like they're really big on him. Everyone sees him going there. I can't think of a controversial reason to say it's not him. Due to 33 solo tackles, forced 4 sacks in the season, which he's good. I think he's developing. He's got great vision, and he's a big boy.
I got to agree. It's Derek Brown. Carolina threw their entire defensive line away this offseason outside of Brian Burns. Mario Addison, gone. Gerald McCoy, gone. I believe, this not a defensive lineman, but Luke Kuechly, gone. Who else? Who else was on that defensive line that they let go? Was it Don Terry Poe?
It might have been Poe.
Was he in Atlanta? Either way, they tore that defense to shreds. Eric Reed's gone. James Bradbury's gone.
Starting over.
Carolina has a lot of holes on the
Picking up
defensive
some
side
of
of
these
football.
veterans didn't work last year. Gerald McCoy, well, you can argue the Bucs probably could have kept him, but I mean, actually, last season you can argue that getting rid of him was a good decision because we had one of the best front sevens. But
by the way, there is a gaping hole at defensive tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Derek Brown is the best defensive lineman in this draft.
he'll fill up
Carolina
two
is
spots.
taking him at number 7.
The dude weighs 318 pounds. Honestly, Zach, you could argue he could take up 2 player spots on that line. I watched him play against the Gators in the homecoming game, and oh my, did he
tried taking over that game himself. Kyle Trask was trembling in the face of Derek Brown. This man is a human. He's a sumo wrestler on the defensive line, and he's going to treat offensive linemen like it.
Any quarterback that's go against Derek Brown, I pray for you and get the physician ready. Anyway, ready to move on to the next pick?
Let's do it. Arizona Cardinals, number 8.
Cardinals. I'm going to have them – sorry, again, my computer is just an absolute mess right now.
You're good.
You ever have one of those issues? Have you noticed since, like, the pandemic, the Wi-Fi just absolutely sucked?
Yeah, it's happened here too. You want me to go first?
Yeah, I got it here. I'm going to go with Jedrick Wills out of Alabama.
Wirfs isn't your first offensive tackle off the board?
No, I think he's the better pick. Just because Bama's offense is solid. It could just be in Saban's system worked really well. But you have to think, what's the best way to build your team around Kyler Murray? Making sure he has the best chance to sit in the pocket, look around, find DeAndre Hopkins, and we could talk about how bad Bill O'Brien sounds after that. But I just want.
You know what? We're gonna swap places here. You know, I talked about protecting Daniel Jones, and now you're talking about protecting Kyler Murray. I am having Isaiah Simmons, the Arizona Cardinals, number 8. I think the Cardinals are very talented on offense. Yes, they do have some holes along that offensive line. They did just extend DJ Humphries, their left tackle, so I don't see a glaring need there at this moment. Like, yes, is Humphries great? No. But did they just extend him? Yes. And there's guaranteed money in there, which means he is your starting left tackle, which to me, the Cardinals have glaring needs on the defensive side of the football at linebacker and in the secondary, whether you want Simmons to be your starting linebacker or a starting safety. I think Arizona needs help on the defensive side of the football more right now than on the offensive line.
Again, I'm going to reiterate, they've already made moves to help out Kyler Murray this offseason. That clearly is the priority of the Cardinals. Honestly, why not boost the right tackle spot? You never know. It's always one of the weakest spots in the NFL. A lot of teams that once they get a better right tackle, they take off. Build around what is your franchise quarterback. I think the fans will like it more. It just makes more sense with what they've been doing the last couple of years to boost the O-line. They can always – I think the defensive depth in this draft is a little deeper down the round, so they'll be able to maybe pick someone up later.
Well, to me, it's defensive side of the football. They've made enough moves to help out Kyler Murray. They got to start, filling out that roster and making him a complete team. All right. Let's move on. Jacksonville Jaguars, number 9 overall pick. A spot that they might not – a pick that they might not hold on to.
They might not. There have been rumors the Bucs might want to trade up.
Atlanta might trade up.
I'm going to say I don't think it's worth it. Just because of what the Bucs want in the draft. If they're moving it for like a quarterback or a wide receiver, I say go for it. But if you're going for like an offensive tackle, there's no reason to trade anything to move up 5 spots because, well, I'll talk about it more when we get to my 14th pick by saying there's going to be someone there that's good.
I would agree. But anyway, with number 9 overall pick, let's assume they keep it. Jacksonville takes you, Harrison.
All right, so I might be biased, but I think this makes sense. I'm going with C.J. Henderson out of Florida.
Wow. That defense has been broken down from its 2017 AFC Championship game form.
I mean, it fell apart.
But I don't know.
But then the second they shipped off Jalen Ramsey, they had to say, we got to replace him somehow.
And now A.J. Bouye is gone.
I think the
Thinking.
best option is C.J. Henderson, and if you can fill up that cornerback spot, the rest might fall into place for them.
I'm going a little bit of a different direction. The Jacksonville Jaguars are taking CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, with the 9th overall pick. Minshew needs weapons. They have nothing on the offensive side of the football. Fournette is a nice running back, but let's be real with ourselves. He's not exactly a weapon out of the backfield in the passing game. Who's Minshew's best weapon in the passing game? Conley?
He
Does he
doesn't really
fear
have
a
a good
god in any
option.
defensive coordinator?
He doesn't really, and that's why, Zach, I will say your pick is still a solid choice. That's probably another. If I wouldn't have gone with Henderson, I probably would have gone with a wide receiver. Minshew mania is real in Jacksonville.
Minshew mania is ruled, but you need weapons for Minshew. The Jags got to go with CeeDee Lamb. They have to bolster that offense. Wide receiver has been an issue since Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns left. Since that 2015 season when the both of them went for 1,000 yards, that was the last time they had any kind of passing attack. It has been too long. You got to get weapons for Minshew, and it begins on Thursday night, CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma to the Jaguars.
And you know what? I think I just kind of realized how we're just oriented differently, Zach. I tend to be a little more defensive oriented versus you. Maybe it's because I grew up a Bucs fan. I mean,
I grew up a
did
Bucs
too.
fan too, and then quite frankly,
You
I
did
haven't seen
too.
good defense in years. The only thing I've seen is competent offensive football out of the Bucs. So maybe that's where my mindset's
Which
at.
is new for the Bucs. A lot of times it's been if the defense is good, the team is good, which is why I think personally you start with the defense and you work from there.
Yeah,
Point prevention.
the Jags still have some players on the defense side of the ball, some good ones, but they do need to address secondary. I will give you that, but they also need to address the wide receiver position. Let's move on. Number 10 pick.
Number 10 pick. We got the Cleveland Browns. I'm going with Mekhi Becton. It's a pretty easy choice, honestly. They really, and I'm going to say really 8,000 more times need to fix that O-line. Baker got destroyed back there last year. They had no running game. You fix that O-line, they win 2 more games immediately. I think that was I'm not going to lie. Going into last season, I was one of those guys who thought the Browns were going to be a much better team than they actually were. And I think it's because I underestimated how bad that O-line was going to be. Mayfield is going to look a lot better if they have people to protect him back there.
For me, same position, different name. Jedrick Wills is a Cleveland Brown beginning Thursday night. As you mentioned, Mayfield took too much of a beating last year. You got in another guy, another franchise quarterback he's got the weapons around him, but you got to keep him standing up. And Jedrick Wills, in my opinion, is the way to go. He might be the best tackle in this draft. Him and Tristan Wirfs, it's a coin toss. But I think Wirfs goes first to the Giants at 4. Wills falls to the Browns at 10, and that's who they're going with.
Makes sense. In the end, when it comes to offensive tackles, it's a very deep draft. I honestly say, despite our picks, we really don't know which players any team is going to pick. It really comes down to, do you prefer this person or this person based on really small tiebreakers? Like, this has to be this is a pretty deep offensive line, a pretty deep draft for those positions. So,
yeah. All right, number 11, the New York Jets.
The New York Jets. You know what? I'm going to be, and it's really hard for me to pick the Jets because they've had them trading all over the place, but I'm going to have them go grab a wide receiver. This is where I have them getting CeeDee Lamb, because I think if you give Sam Darnold a few extra weapons, that team is going to be a lot better.
This one, I'm going offensive line again. Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle out of Louisville. It's the New York Jets. That running game last year was abysmal. Sam Darnold missed quite a few games, not his fault. He got mono, but quite frankly, that offensive attack was not good enough, and it began with the running game. Le'Veon Bell did not live up to the hype, and part of it is they just didn't get it done in the trenches. The Jets need a left tackle. The Jets need a tackle. Mekhi Becton's the guy. It's the Jets at 11.
And it makes perfect sense, but again, I think the Jets need to find a way to boost that passing game a bit, and I know an O-line would help. I would like to see a full season of Sam Darnold to help make the decision on how that O-line is going to be. I think if you get that passing game going, really build a team around him, give him weapons. That rush defense last year was the second best behind the Bucs. So there's a lot of potential for that team to be good, maybe even next season. Not good, but like improving from the disaster that was last season. You boost that passing game, give that rush defense a reason to not be on the field as much, you're in good shape.
Absolutely. Obviously, either way, the Jets need some help on the offense side of the football, whether it is CeeDee Lamb or Mekhi Becton or anyone else. They got to address the offense side of the football. I don't think there's any doubt.
Honestly, and you ready to move on to the Raiders?
Let's do it. Vegas Raiders, number 12.
Honestly, I'm still getting used to that one. I almost call them the Oakland Raiders. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
All right, you're probably going to hate me for this one, but this is when I think someone picks up Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert to the Raiders. Continue. Elaborate. I'll give you mine.
I'll elaborate. And I know I'm saying that despite the fact that he might be a later round pick. I think the Raiders are almost done with Derek Carr. It's weird to say. I wouldn't give up on him, but it's a similar situation where you're trying to restart, new faces, new city. Derek Carr could get you a lot of nice trade pieces from someone else. Start anew with a new quarterback in Las Vegas.
I just feel that if they were going to get rid of Derek Carr, they'd have done it already.
I mean,
that's the way I feel.
Haven't gotten rid of Andy Dalton yet.
Now, I'll say this, and I've heard this a couple times, but I think it still holds true that this is one of my favorite lines, and it's from Lee DeKemper over at Joe Bucs fan. He says it all the time. John Gruden has never met a quarterback he doesn't like until he's played for him. And I think that might be the case with Carr. You might be right here. Gruden might be tired of Derek Carr and ready to move on. And Gruden foams at the mouth over basically any draft prospect that he sees at the quarterback position. It's just what happens. He did Gruden's quarterback camp where we saw him sit there and hype up and talk about every single quarterback prospect he likes. He loved Nathan Peterman a few years ago, and Nathan Peterman's now back with the Raiders. He loves them. So, and we know about Nathan Peterman. So it could make sense on the surface, but in reality, I don't think the Raiders are done with Carr. They just signed Marcus Mariota as a backup. I'm not sure there's room on that roster for another QB, even a rookie. And with the 12th overall pick, that's why I have the Vegas Raiders taking Jerry Jeudy, the receiver out of Alabama. I think they need weapons for Carr. They've traded away Amari Cooper. They've gotten rid of Michael Crabtree. Yes, last year they had Hunter Renfrow kind of breakout. But besides that, Hunter Renfrow and Tyrell Williams are your best receivers on offense? Really? And you expect Derek Carr to flourish? All right. That's not going to be the case. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. If you can't give the man anyone to throw to, of course he's not going to be successful. Jerry Jeudy is a human joystick. He can move and change directions on a dime. He might be the best receiver in this draft over CeeDee Lamb. Personally, I feel like he could be. And that's why the Raiders go get Jeudy, number 12, to help bolster that offense and help Derek Carr out.
No, I actually almost said that the Jets drafted him over Lamb. So I like him. But again, anytime you have a really good quarterback, you might look good as a wide receiver. You had Tua as your quarterback for most of the season. I don't know. I think he's going to be good. My mindset is, for a lot of teams, the face of your franchise is your quarterback. I just see it. Gruden is very trigger happy with his quarterbacks. We saw it with the Bucs. How many did he go through?
Lord knows. Brad Johnson, Brian Greasy, Bruce Gradkowski, Chris Sims, Tim Rattay. I said Luke McCown already. Did I say Luke McCown?
No, you didn't.
Luke McCown, Jeff Garcia, back to Brian Greasy. I mean, he's went through so many quarterbacks. It's ridiculous.
That's why I don't think he hangs on the Derek Carr. He might see it as a trade bait opportunity to build another spot. Who knows? You can use him to trade for another wide receiver or two. There's going to be a team that wants a quarterback. And I think the idea is –
Of course, Derek Carr. Good. I like Derek Carr. I know I'm one of the few,
I like Derek Carr.
I like Derek Carr.
I just don't see Gruden staying with him just because he has it's a turnstile over there when it comes to getting quarterbacks behind that O-line.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. Last pick before the Bucs. Number 13 was originally supposed to go to the Colts, but they traded away that number 13 pick to get DeForest Buckner from the reigning NFC champion San Francisco 49ers. San Fran now has number 13 overall pick. Which way are they going, Harrison?
Well, Zach, I say that the Giants really
Giants?
sorry, I meant
49ers.
49ers. You know I'm baseball brain sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, before this podcast, I was reading a story on the San Francisco Giants. That's probably why my brain opted that for no reason.
Probably. Hit me with it, though. What do they got?
I'm going to have them going with giving Jimmy G more weapons with Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama.
That's
Basically,
fair.
we just have we all know these guys are getting drafted early. We just have them going to different teams for different reasons or another.
Well, with me also, I got to agree. Jimmy G needs more weapons. Emmanuel Sanders no longer there. Now signed a 2-year deal with the New Orleans Saints. They need another receiver. You know, Deebo Samuel showed great flashes last year as a rookie. He played very well. He played admirably for a San Francisco 49ers offense that was surprisingly productive. It helped that their defense was outstanding and set them up with favorable field position quite often. But for San Francisco, because Jerry Jeudy's already off the board, I got them taking Henry Ruggs, the other wide receiver out of Alabama, at number 13. Got to bolster that offense, Harrison. They got to do it.
They have to. And again, I don't think we can really debate why one wide receiver is better than the other, especially when they're all coming out of the same school.
Yeah.
In the end, it comes down to you lost a wide receiver to the Saints. You can't rely on Kittle the entire season, especially when he's a tight end. It's not realistic just having one main guy. They'll cover him. If you at least have another option, you can keep the defense on their toes. And also, Judy's good.
My dog, man. I love it. Oh my God. But I gotta agree. I would say it's Jeudy if I already didn't have Jeudy going earlier and going to the Raiders, just to pick before. But in this scenario, to me, San Francisco has to go receiver. If Judy's on the board, I could see it. But if he's not, Henry Ruggs, next best guy, and quite frankly, another guy who might be the best receiver in this draft. An unbelievable prospected wide receiver. San Francisco takes him number 13.
Yeah, and you ready for that Bucs pick?
Let's do it. Number 14, drum roll, baby. Number 14, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They draft Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. And when you're a Gator, it pains you to say that, but the dude is he's a big guy. Georgia had a good offensive line last season. I got to go get him.
And Harrison, we're gonna end this first round with the Bucs having the same pick. Andrew Thomas, number 14 out of Georgia. Like you said, it pains me. I'm a Gator, but quite frankly, when they get to the NFL, I don't care where you're from as long as you produce. Andrew Thomas was a hell of a tackle in Georgia. The Bucs have a glaring need at right tackle with DeMar Dotson no longer there. Sure, they got Joel Haig, but the Bucs need an offensive tackle, and they are going to take one. Andrew Thomas to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, number 14 overall. That is the move. That is the only pick in this mock draft with us that makes sense. Obviously, Thursday night, we don't know who's going to be there, whether there's going to be trades, what's going to happen. We don't know. But with this on paper, it makes sense. The Bucs got to go offense tackle, and Andrew Thomas is going to be the best one available for them at 14.
I have to agree, Zach. And you know what? When you have a 43-year-old quarterback and your running game is atrocious, you need to boost that O-line. And that's probably one of the few things we're going to agree on so far. If Brady potentially is a sack away from having a 2008 season, which he didn't have.
That's true.
That'd be a very Bucs thing to happen, may I add.
No, a more Bucs thing to happen is they sign Tom Brady, all the hype's there, and then there's no season. That would be the most Bucs thing to happen.
It would be a very Bucs thing to happen, but losing Brady on the field is pretty close.
Oh, yeah. Nothing like Blaine Gabbert coming in. Our savior, Blaine Gabbert, to come save this franchise and end the 12-year playoff drought. Cannot wait.
I'm not going to lie, Zach. If Blaine Gabbert took the field and Brady tore his ACL, I'd walk out of the stadium, and I'm watching on TV the rest of the season.
Oh, go ahead and turn off the TV. I know it's over. Why is Blaine Gabbert here? You
I
couldn't
don't know
better.
why.
Drew Stanton is a free agent. He knows Bruce Arians. He's played for him for many years, and he's better than Blaine Gabbert.
Why aren't they
I mean, I think his
drafting
career
him?
record's like 9-4, Drew Stanton. Blaine Gabbert is an embarrassment.
He's a
for this
bust.
franchise into the National Football League, okay?
He's the top 10 bust as I've ever seen one. Why aren't it makes me question if the Bucs are going to draft a quarterback at all in this draft, which we'll talk about this later, and I think they do. But it kind of got rid of the hope that the Bucs are going to have someone that can sit behind Brady a couple of years because you decide you'd rather have a bust veteran as a backup.
I know Brady hasn't missed a game since 2008. I know that. But it's the
that's
NFL.
not the
We've
point.
seen it for the last couple seasons when Jameis was getting suspended or hurt with Fitzpatrick. You need a better insurance plan than Blaine Gabbert.
But the point isn't if Brady's going to miss games. We need to think about 3 seasons from now when Brady calls it quits. He's not playing more than 2 seasons in Tampa.
Yeah, maybe 3.
Maybe 3.
That's a one-year deal.
He might come back.
He could.
He might. I'm planning for if it's just 2 years. You have an opportunity to draft a quarterback, have him sit behind one of the greatest of all time, spend 2 years learning area and system, which is like trying to learn the dictionary. And he'll take the starting job 3 years from now looking a lot better than anyone else could immediately.
Listen, the Bucs are in win-now mode. In case
they're in win-now mode, but they have to think about –
So with them being in win-now mode, they might not be in a position to use a high draft pick or any draft pick on a guy who's not going to see the field for 3 seasons. That just might be the case. They might wait till next year to draft their quarterback. They might. Don't kid yourself. They might.
No, they totally could because there's a lot of good quarterback options next year too. Who knows? Maybe we get Shane Pearson out of Michigan. It's possible. But I didn't say I like them. I'm just giving you an example of someone who's going to be one of the better options.
Maybe Justin Fields, maybe Trevor Lawrence will be in next year's draft. Although
if
with Tom Brady, you hope the Bucs aren't in position to draft them. You hope the Bucs aren't, top 5, top 10 team in the draft next year. You hope. But, we're going in circles.
But is Justin Fields going to be available, going to go in the first 15 picks?
We don't know. Talking about the 2021 draft is kind of irrelevant at this point.
I'd rather not think about it. You're right. But, again, I'm going to reiterate, the Bucs are in win-now mode, and they should be. But we need that success to last more than Tom Brady because we've already set ourselves up for a potential, now what do we do, come 2022.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. I'm personally of the mind that the Bucs very well could draft a quarterback this year. All I'm saying is don't be surprised if they don't.
I agree. And I don't think it's a priority. I think the biggest weapon they're going to prioritize after the offensive line is a running back who I do take in round 2.
Have to.
They have to.
Harrison, we're done with 1 through 14. First round's over. Let's move on with this. All right, the Bucs get Andrew Thomas, an offensive tackle, in the first round of this scenario. Let's move on. Rounds 2 through 7, very different. The Bucs have 6 more picks. We got an offensive tackle. Let's talk about round number 2, and it's a running back.
Yeah, I think we both agree it's a running back. I just don't know if we agree who it is.
Who do you got?
I'm honestly still stuck between 2. I like both J.K. Dobbins and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If either of them are there at the same time, I'm taking all 10 minutes to decide who I want because they both have their ups and downs. You have Edwards-Helaire, who, despite having Joe Burrow as his quarterback, had 16 touchdowns or 1,400 rushing yards, which is insane to think that despite the 60 touchdowns by Joe Burrow, he's able to get any.
That's why it might go down as one of the greatest offenses, if not the greatest offense in college football history.
Exactly. But at the same time, though, Dobbins had over 20 touchdowns and over 2,000 rushing yards with Justin Fields as his quarterback. Grant, Fields was not Joe Burrow, but he still threw over 40 touchdowns.
He was still dominant, Justin Fields. Anyone who thinks otherwise, the man was a Heisman candidate, and had it not been for Joe Burrow stepping up and throwing 60 touchdowns last year. Now that includes the playoff games and whatnot in the SEC championship, but had it not been for Joe Burrow throwing 60 touchdowns last year, Justin Fields might have been your Heisman Trophy winner. So,
I mean, if Tua
don't kid
doesn't get
yourself.
hurt, he might have won it over both of them. You never know. Then again, it could have changed because LSU was so dominant. But for a while, Tua was the Heisman favorite, and he probably would have won if he didn't hurt his hip.
Maybe, but I don't think anyone was taking it from Burrow last year. Just
Probably
because of how good
not,
he
but
was.
it's
But
something that
going,
can't
to
leave
your
out.
point, I think a lot of Bucs fans are just going to be relieved if this team takes any running back at all. Listen.
I'll be happy if they take LaMichael P. Ryan.
Yes.
They're not going
And
to.
we're Gators at heart, and we can't help but show our bias. We love Michael P. Ryan, but outside him, Jonathan Taylor is a name that a lot of people like, and the man is a great runner, amazing runner. I mean, he was so good at Wisconsin. The only issue, his hands aren't amazing, and he does have a little bit of a fumbling problem. And if there's one thing that Arians is looking for in his running back in this draft, it is one that can catch the football. And not to mention, he has a little bit of an issue with turnovers, as we found out from him saying goodbye to Jameis Winston, despite over 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns. Arians won't tolerate the turnovers. He refuses to. And if Jonathan Taylor, if he can't trust that Taylor will hold on to the football, then he won't draft him. But I've heard the Bucs have shown interest. Jenna Lane this morning, the ESPN writer for the Bucs, she put out that there is some interest. The Bucs did have a Zoom meeting with Jonathan Taylor, and there is some interest there. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went with Jonathan Taylor. And like I said, he was such a good back at Wisconsin. Will anyone really be upset?
No, but I just think not drafting either of the two we've mentioned would be a huge mistake. If they're there, you can't pass on either of them. And I'm going to do a tiebreaker now. I'm going with Edwards-Helaire over Dobbins, mainly because the dude's vision's insane. The dude's fast on his feet. He'll jet sweep the heck out of you. He will break 3 tackles in one run, and he's small.
If I were to
He's not a big guy, and he will do that.
If I were to have a preference out of all the running backs, and like I said, if the Bucs go with Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, if they somehow nag him, if they somehow take him,
I'm not big on
J.K.
Swift.
Dobbins. I like Swift. He's a good runner. He's a good running back. But if they were to get any of the above, I'd be fine. But I have to agree, the best pick for the Bucs at running back has to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Take what Arian said just weeks ago when he's talking about what he's looking for at a running back. He wants one with great hands that can make plays out of the backfield, but can also line up as a slot receiver. Guess out of all the running backs we've named, guess who is the one that lined up as a slot receiver? Guess.
Clearly, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is the best pass-catching running back in this draft. He can line up at receiver.
Not just
he can
like a
do
running
it.
back.
He can be the Bucs' David Johnson. He can be that guy. And he's a hell of a runner, as you mentioned before. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best pick for the Bucs, but I won't be upset if they go with any of the other runners that we mentioned.
It could be if they go with anyone else. They want a running back whose job it is just to be a running back, which is very possible. I think
it doesn't seem likely in my eyes because
it's such a pass-heavy offense.
Arians likes Ronald Jones as just a pure runner. I think that's going to be his role next season. Arians is looking for that pass-catching running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a great pass-catching running back. J.K. Dobbins can do it. DeAndre Swift can do it. I don't think Taylor can do it as well as the others.
True. And another thing I like about Edwards-Helaire is just his build. He's not built like specifically one position or the other, which is why I think he's successful at both. He's like that in-between guy where he's able to be athletic at both the receiver position and the running back position. A lot of times you're successful just because you got a quarterback that can put the ball in your hands, but you're also just really good at busting through that defensive line. I don't think that's the case with Edwards-Helaire.
Right. All right, let's move on. Round 3.
Round 3, ideally, in my opinion, this is where the Bucs pick up a quarterback. If they were to draft a quarterback. And I have him going with Jake Fromm.
Jake Fromm.
Out of
Georgia.
In the 3rd round. I know. My mom would be very happy that I was picking Bulldogs. Just fun fact, my mom went to Georgia. I think if they do draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, which I think would make sense, he's the best option left.
It's hard to argue. I mean, I have the Bucs doing the same exact thing. From quarterback 3rd round. It's you gotta have a plan for Brady, for life without Brady. And to me, it seems like the right thing to do. Jake Fromm has been impressing quarterback coaches throughout all the entire offseason process, and it makes sense. It
And I
makes sense. The
know,
Bucs should. I think Jake Fromm is a smart quarterback. If you give him a couple of years to learn behind, give him a couple of years to learn behind, with Brady and Arians, I think he could turn out to be a quality NFL quarterback, and I think the Bucs will be willing to do that in the third round.
and I know Fromm had a bit of a relative down year compared to the year before or even his rookie year, but he's there. The talent is there, very much there. It's kind of like a similar situation we talked about Justin Herbert, except much farther down the line. It's like day 2 already of the draft, but he's a smart guy. He's willing to learn. He's strong. He's got a good arm. And I think the most valuable thing, and I know we're kind of going in circles here, the idea that you can have a quarterback sit for 2 years, learn from Tom Brady, really memorize that insane playbook is so invaluable that you have you will not realize what you missed until you get to 3 years from now, and then the guy doesn't know what he's doing.
True. All right, round 4.
Round 4, just pulling up my chart here. I'm going with someone on defense. A little bit of Gator bias here, but I'm picking Jonathan Grenard if he's there.
Wow. Jonathan Grenard. I mean, great edge rusher for Florida last year.
I like depth.
He's
Even if we already have a linebacker that works, I want depth on this team. I think it's been lacking the last couple of years. Jonathan Grenard, as you mentioned, was phenomenal for the Florida Gators last season. That defense was absolutely insane. And if you can boost the depth, I think it really helps the Bucs' chances because you never know. Maybe JPP gets hurt. They need to try him in a different spots. I think he'd be a good person to help step up there.
I get the feeling that this is going to be a very offensive heavy draft for the Bucs in the at least on the front end, first 4 rounds, and that's why with the Bucs for the 4th round, I have them taking Chase Claypool, wide receiver out of Notre Dame. With no Brashad Perriman, in my eyes, this is the best way to go for the Bucs. They need to get another weapon for Brady, someone who can step up, hopefully develop going forward. And Claypool's got great size. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but a great size, good hands, and an excellent route runner. I think Chase Claypool is the guy that the Bucs should go with in the 4th round. I think he could be a steal. I really do.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he's also available in the 5th round. You can pick him up there. I don't know if he falls that far. Someone's going to get smart and pick him. And I think that's the same thing with Jonathan Grenard. Once you get to the 4th round, it's really more just like, who do you prefer?
Right.
Who do you still know?
Yeah, exactly. Who's there that, honestly could make a difference?
And again, like I said, me, I'm very defensive oriented. After seeing the way the Bucs defense looked, once it's not that front 7, you need guys who can really help, one, provide depth for that front 7, because some of them are veterans and they could get hurt.
Right.
And you might want to try guys in different positions in the secondary.
Yeah.
Especially a secondary is one of the worst in the NFL for most of the season. I know a lot of guys stepped up towards the end, but for most of the season, it was not pretty.
Yeah. I mean, you make an excellent point. I mean, some guys, but anyway, moving on. 5th round for the Bucs. Who do you got?
Mine's kind of weird. It's more of I'm oddly intrigued. Kenny Robinson Jr. out of West Virginia, who also played in the XFL for the St. Louis Battlehawks. It's one of those just odd, intrigued ones. I know that's really the only downside is he played in the XFL, so you're basically drafting a guy from the Tier 2 Pro League. But a lot of people like his athletic ability. You never know. He could be really good in the pass coverage.
Yeah. Kenny Robinson. Safety. I think the Bucs do need a safety. Obviously a lot of people would prefer to have a veteran, maybe someone else that can, maybe provide some sort of veteran leadership in the secondary. But I mean, I think the Bucs just need to add a safety. I mean, I like Jordan Whitehead and I don't mind Mike Edwards, but neither one really splashed last year. I think the Bucs, obviously in the 5th round, you might not find, the greatest player. You might not find, a sure starter, but you might be able to find some value. You never know. So Kenny Robinson, safety, 5th round.
Anyway, you ready for that 6th round pick?
6th round pick. Now we're just trying to, kind of figure out who's going to be there, who might be available at this point. I'm going to go Antonio Gibson, running back out of Memphis. I know we already have them taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but this might be one of those moves where they can get him for, depth purposes. And, Antonio Gibson, I've heard great things about him. And he's one of those late-round guys that might work out, but we'll see. I think they might take 2 running backs and hope that, even just one of them pans out. Antonio Gibson's a late-round guy that has promise that could work out really well for the Bucs.
Yeah.
And if you cut him in training camp, it's a 6th round pick. Wipe your hands clean. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah. I also go with a player on offense, except I'm going with a wide receiver. I'm going to go with Jonathan Peoples-Jones out of Michigan.
Ooh.
He's got good. He has the frame to be a good NFL wide receiver. I think at this point I'm picking guys that might be backups, but I think it doesn't hurt to get more weapons for your quarterback. We saw last year that we had some injuries. If Mike Evans goes, you could be in trouble. And Brashard Perriman's not here anymore. You need the extra receiver. Obviously, you don't go for one in the first 3 rounds. So I think by the 6th round, you can say, you know what? Let's get that 4th or 5th receiver for Brady in case something happens to one of our top guys.
You know what, Harrison, I just realized is that the Bucs, we messed up with this. The Bucs have 2 4th-round picks and then a 5th and a 6th. They got a comp pick in the 4th round for Quan Alexander when he signed with San Francisco. So they got a comp pick. They have 2 4th-rounders. We messed up on that.
We forgot about that 4th-round pick.
We messed up on that. I had Chase Claypool, and I can go back. And then they have the 5th and 6th round pick. I'm going to let my 5th and 6th round pick still hold true.
I'm letting all my other picks hold true. You know what? Because we didn't really factor in that 2nd, 4th pick, I'm just going to say Van Jefferson out of Florida because go Gators. Why not?
Get to the 4th round?
He could be there in the 4th round. He's not one of the top receivers available, but he's good. I think he's one of those guys that could be a steal. We watched him play with 2 quarterbacks, and he was successful with both of them, so it's him and not the person putting the ball in your hands.
All right. My 4th-round pick, I got the Bucs going Alex Highsmith. He's the defensive end out of Charlotte. Jason Light's got, he has a thing for small school guys, and he likes to see him pan out. Now, granted, it's been on the offensive side of the ball the last couple times he's done it with Alex Kappa and Ali Marpet, it's been on the offensive side of the ball, offensive line, but I think he's going to attack the trenches with a small school guy, Alex Highsmith out of Charlotte. Not sure it'll pan out, but that's what I got him doing. All right. Well, there you go. We attack the Bucs needs. I really do believe it's going to be an offensive-heavy draft. I think they're going to attack the offensive line in the trenches. They got to get a running back, and I think a receiver is not a need, kind of a luxury, but they need someone to take over for Brashard Perriman. It's a deep drafted wide receiver, and they can get a quality one later in the draft, and I believe they're going to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you, except I think they do a little bit of a mix. My final thoughts, for sure, we're in consensus. Those first 3 picks in the draft are going towards offensive players. It's a must, especially when a lot of them are just going to be depleted by the 4th round. And I think after that, they might be able to assess who might be able to help out in the secondary because it wasn't very good. It's not only the offense that needs –
Got a lot better, though.
They're a lot better. The whole team looked a lot better towards the end of the season, which is why it does make it a lot harder. Game 2, you'd have a different opinion on what they have to do versus game 14. It's such a different situation.
Yeah, exactly. And, we had a lot of young rookies who did develop going, in the second half of last season. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis got a lot better. You can say Jordan Whitehead played much better. And Mike Edwards, he wasn't great, but he got better as the season went on. Even if it was, minimally, he got a little bit better. But Secondary came a long way considering where they started. And will they attack the secondary? Maybe, but it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if they left it alone because they didn't want because they like what they have with some of those younger players.
The big thing about the Bucs after this draft is you always have phase 2 of free agency to fix anything that you missed in this draft, especially if you already drafted someone that you really don't know if you're actually going to keep. Because at one point you're like, hey, I have the picks, I got to use them. You don't just say, I'm not drafting anybody this round. You trade it away. Like for the 7th round pick.
Exactly.
And we don't know how they're going to do until they take the field.
We don't.
That's a part of it.
Ultimately, all we can do is hope that they take the field this September. But with that, Harrison, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to kick you out, man. An excellent episode here on SS Tampa Bay. Thank you so much, man. Great mock draft. We'll see what happens Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And you can catch us next weekend. We're going to have a full draft recap of the Bucs. Whole thing wraps up on Saturday, and we'll be here to recap the Bucs draft. Harrison, it's an awesome time, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, man.
As always.
Zach, it's always a pleasure every week. I can't wait for the next episode. I think it's been a good time.
Always, man. Catch us next week. SS Tampa Bay. We'll see you later. Thank you so much for listening.